Hi, today we're going to discuss some basic techniques for you to use SPSS software. Now, the first thing I need to bring to your attention is I prepared a handout for this tutorial of SPSS. So you would find the handout of SPSS tutorial on our iLearn course website. Now, I'm basically going to follow this handout to discuss how you can use SPSS either on your laptop or on a virtual machine. All right. So what we're going to cover today is the following. We're going to talk about the basics of getting into and using SPSS. We're going to talk about how to import and look at the data. Then we're going to talk about how to summarize the data by getting the summary statistics and frequency, as well as the means and the crosstabs of doing SPSS. We're going to talk about some basics in graphics in SPSS. And then we're going to talk about generating new variables and running some simple statistical analysis in SPSS. Now, the first thing I need to tell you is where to get SPSS. In the handout, you will see that you can get an SPSS free of charge from ITS at UC Riverside. Now, if you click on this link, it should take you to the software site licensing at UC Riverside. As long as you're a registered student at UCR, you should be able to get SPSS for free, all right, free of charge. And so once you get this website, you might click on SPSS software. Then this is the web page you will see. And scroll down, you will find how to use my software to obtain SPSS student license for Windows, Mac, and other operating system. You will also see the installation instructions. All right, I highly recommend that you download this installation instructions before you download and install SPSS. Now, one more thing I need to let you know is if you're a student from MBPP, you may have some trouble downloading SPSS from this website. In that case, you can still have SPSS, but you need to contact ITS so that you can have access. In the handout, I also give you some information on where to get help, additional help on SPSS. So for example, you can have some online videos, look at some online videos. And UCR actually subscribed to this excellent online teaching resource called Linda, right? And now it's called LinkedIn Learning. And following this link, you will be led to LinkedIn Learning, and you can find a lot of materials for SPSS Statistic Essential Training. And you will also be able to find many useful user-provided tutorials on YouTube, and you can search for such videos so that you will get the basics. Now, in today's class and also in the following classes, I'm going to also demonstrate how you can use SPSS for different things for our course, all right? So these information are just there for you if you need additional help, all right? You can look at these teaching materials, videos, and in the meantime, I want to emphasize, you can also always contact me if you need additional help. Okay, so the first thing, let's talk about how you can open a data set from SPSS. So now suppose that you have installed SPSS on your desktop or laptop. What you can do is, this is the window that will pop up when you open SPSS. Now here, I've already opened the dataset. If I close it, all right, if I close this window, and starting from scratch, what you can do is you scroll down your programs, and you can open SPSS from your list of the programs installed on your machine. Now, the screenshot you see right now is for SPSS 14, but we already have SPSS 24, 25. I want to show you that the basic screenshots are basically basically very similar. All right, so you can still use this screenshot to open dataset from SPSS. So let's wait for SPSS to load. Okay, so once you open SPSS, it will ask you which data set or which data file you want to open. So the data file we're going to use today, it's called demo.sav. SAV is basically the data file extension for SPSS data. So I've already uploaded the demo.sav file on our Island website. And you can open it, you can download it onto your desktop or laptop, and you can open it when SPSS asks you for the data. Click open, and you will see the SPSS data. Now, this is the basic SPSS data view, all right? Each row represents an observation, all right? So in this case, each row basically represents a consumer, and we have his age, marital status, address, and other information. So how many consumers or how many observations do we have in this data? We have altogether 6,400 consumers, or we can say we have 6,400 observations. Each column here represents a variable, all right? Or you can say each column represents a piece of information we have for these different consumers. So in this case, we have the age information for these 6,400 consumers. We also have their marital status, their address, their income, and other information. So this is the data view. Now, if you want to have more information, all right, about the data, especially about these different variables, you can look at another view of the data, and that is called a variable view in SPSS. So I'm going to click on that, and this will lead you to the variable view for these different variables. So as you can see, I have 29 variables for these 6,400 consumers. It will tell you about the type of the data variables, the width, the decimals, and the next two columns here are important, right? So we have the label information for these 29 variables. So the label here represents the detailed variable name or variable information. For example here, income here, basically here, the label information is household income in thousands, all right? So the income variable here in our data, this 72 represents $72,000 for consumer one. All right, so the consumer one makes $72,000 in income, right? Because income, we know now, the label information says it's household income in thousands. Now there is some other, the other variable that is, the other column that is important for us to look at, it's called values. For example, the second variable, marital status. If you look at the values for marital status, if you click on this, you'll see that a value of 0 for marital status represents unmarried, and a value of 1 for marital status represents married. All right. So if you go back to the data view, you will see that for consumer 1, he or she is married. For consumer 2, because 0 represents unmarried, so consumer 2 is unmarried. Now, in this data set, basically, I've already input all the label information and also I did input all the value information, all right, all the value information for these different variables. So you can see all these information here. When you create when you create a data set yourself, for example, when you create a data from your survey, you basically need to input the label information as well as the information for the values, because these two columns, the information are basically provided by the data collector. In other words, by yourself, all right? Because you're collecting the data and you're putting the data into SPSS, and you need to provide the information for the label. You also need to provide the information for the values, all right? In other words, you need to tell for yourself and also tell SPSS what these different values mean. All right, so just to clarify. So this is the basics for data view.